Exalted, I believe, is in 12/8, and I did not have my hymnal that had that in it when I got that question. But I can tell you that's going to kind of answer a couple different questions at once. And one of the questions was, how do you differentiate between 6/8, 9/8, and 12/8 by ear? I would say what you're listening for, if you're hearing a song without having the music to it, is you're listening for the primary downbeat. So whether it's 6/8, that's going to feel like a 2, because you divide a 6/8 measure into two primary parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'll give you an example of that. And then you take a 9/8 song and it's going to feel like a 3, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whereas a 12/8 is going to feel kind of like a 4 divided into groups with triplets. And I think Be Thou Exalted is a 12. Sometimes in hymnals, Saved might look like a 12. I Serve a Risen Savior. 6/8 and 12/8 are a lot more similar than 9/8, which sits right there in the middle. So back to Be Thou Exalted, someone asked for, actually Jacob asked for advanced tips for that. I would say keep your left hand in charge of the rhythm and let your right hand control that melody. I'm letting the motion actually come from the middle of my hand, not the octaves on either side. Like that. So you're keeping that rhythm. And the goal really is accurate melody and strong rhythm. If you're playing it congregationally, you want that to be really strong. So I would think big octaves. Sorry, I don't have my hymnal. I won't get everything. So all of the fill-in has to still go underneath the melody, which is first, and then your rhythm staying nice and steady. Now back to the question about 6/8, 9/8, and 12/8, which is a super common question. An example of 9/8 feeling different from 6/8 or 12/8, which actually feel a lot alike, would be Blessed Assurance. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So if you're trying to feel that by ear, find the primary downbeat. Look for that central 1, 2, 3. And then of course, 9/8, we've just subdivided into that 1, 2, 3, even though it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whenever you're playing songs with an 8 on the bottom, unless it's like softly and tenderly, don't feel all beats. Feel the primary beats and let those middle beats, the 8ths or the 16ths, let those almost feel softer. Like intentionally play them softer. You don't have to play every note the same volume. Okay, let's see. Tips and...
Let everyone know what we're doing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so sorry, I forgot to announce that. This is what happened last night. We go live almost every Sunday night on Facebook, and I play hymn requests. Well, there's been more requests for tutorial type things, but since Sunday night is really just hymn requests, I wanted to do it at a separate time. So that's why we're here on YouTube, and I'm just answering hymn playing questions. So it's not really so much requests. I don't mind playing a couple at the end, but if you have a request for like help on a certain song or a rhythm that just kind of gets you every time you have to play that, this is the place to do it. So I posted that on Instagram and Facebook earlier today, and I screenshot all of those questions. So I'm just going one by one, and these are very broad, and it might hit something that you've struggled with or have wondered about or just would love to get somebody else's perspective. So I'm just sharing my perspective on all of these questions. So that's where they come from. So this is tips and techniques to use when playing Southern gospel hymns. A lot of Southern gospel, if you're playing by yourself and you're the primary pianist and you're the only one, you want that rhythm to come out very, very clearly. So it's going to be based a lot on like a heavy octave in your left hand and a chord in your right hand. If you're kind of, thinking more like, let's go with My Sins Are Gone, that kind of style. simple, but what I'm doing is octaving my melody, and this would be for congregationals. And then I'm putting the chord actually in the middle of my right hand on the and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like that, while my left hand primarily plays on all the quarters. You'll sometimes hear that called like a boom chick rhythm. A lot of gospel pianists refer to it as that. And it's just like a steady beat that kind of goes underneath. If you're playing for a special group, you actually don't have to play as much melody, and you can kind of just keep that rhythm nice and steady, but keep the rhythm very, very central. And if you add licks, do it very tastefully. I'm actually not a big really kind of pianist when it comes to Southern gospel stuff. I'm much more foundational and like congregational. But if you do them, make sure they fit and don't overdo them. Sometimes you can run into problems if you try to do too much and then your rhythm actually gets off. When can you add the seventh to hymn playing? You can put the 1-7 in before a 4. So let's take the song At Calvary. Right here at the end of the verse, going into the chorus, we go to the 4 chord. That's a great place to add in the 7th. So just make the 1 a 7. And I'm talking about the whole step below that top note. And your 1-7 always leads to your 4. In the same way, your 5-7 chord always leads back to your 1. So that works. We'll stay in the key of C for At Calvary. So there's my 5-7. So I'm playing a G chord and I'm adding in the F natural. And there it is, back to my 1. Your 5-7 will always lead to your 1. Okay, we already did Be Thou Exalted. How did you learn to chord? I had a really strong classical foundation that had a very heavy theory emphasis. My teacher, Ina Pegram, she was a genius, and she really pushed theory. And I have this book that I keep up here anyway when I'm teaching, and I've been teaching all day, so that's why it's here. But it's the complete book of scales, chords, arpeggios, and cadences, and it's published by Alfred. Wonderful. So it has for every single key, this happens to be E major, all of your primary chords, including your minors, and then the cadence, which is like how to get from the 1 to the 4 to the 1 to the 5, the 5-7, and the 1 in order. And that's just a simple cadence. And it takes work to memorize them. There's not like a simple formula for it, but consistency will help you master the chords. Like whatever key you play in, find out the 1, the 4, and the 5. In the classical world, you'll hear that called the tonic, subdominant, and dominant. So in the key of C, the tonic is C, subdominant is F, dominant is G. So find out the chords for every key you play in, and also learn to play them in different ways. So like if this is a C chord, that is also a C chord, and this gets into one of the questions later on. You can take a chord and put it in any shape, and it's still that chord. So that will help you add variety to your hymn playing by knowing how to move around between chords. All right, will you please show your fill-ins for the chorus to God Be the Glory? I'll play it how I'll play it tonight. It's probably not the same way you've heard it, so I'll do my best. We'll see what happens. So. Instead of just going, I started up on the G, which happens to be in the middle of the E flat chord, and then walk it down in triplets. Just an A flat scale, just starting on a G. I'll do it in slow motion. And it works because the melody line is repeated. Praise the Lord. So I can do that same one at the end of the verse. E flat, F, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat. And the rhythm is... starting on a C. 1, 2, 3. That just walks me from my 2 up to the 1. And notice, even though I'm on an A flat chord, I'm using a C in my bass because that's part of the A flat chord. How do you make hymns sound more full with easy chords? Play the chord in a different shape. That is a great question. So if this is Nothing But the Blood, that's a G chord, G, B, D. Well, now that you know that those are the 3 notes that are in a G chord, then play that in a different shape. Or even experiment around with like a rolling pattern. So what I'm doing is I'm doing 1, 5, 1, and that just kind of like gives you a little bit of a different way to play that chord instead of just playing it in its root position. Okay, what are your favorite hymns for specials? I like old hymns that you aren't just going to sing congregationally all the time. A couple weeks ago, Josh and I did Come Thou Fount for a special, and I really enjoyed that. I think sometimes if you hear an old hymn done as a special, it actually helps everybody, including the singers, think about the words a little more. So think of some old hymn that hasn't been done very much. I don't know, All That Thrills My Soul Is Jesus, or He Hideth My Soul, a song that you find in your hymnal that you haven't heard in a while. That's a great one. Okay, let's see. Ideas for the left hand to break out of the octave chord stride. I would recommend you find measures where you do not let yourself put a chord in and instead look for a connector. So I just worked with somebody on Amazing Grace. So I might go, instead of just chording, walk it up to the C chord here instead of letting yourself go. Instead of doing that every measure, find a place where you can put in something that leads up to the next chord. Walk it up to C. Or if you're feeling really ambitious, so that's an outline where you take the notes of the chord and then go down like that, or you can go up as well. So just don't let yourself play chords every measure. So mark a couple measures where it's like, I'm going to do something with octaves, whether it's a scale up or a scale down, or maybe an outline. Okay, let's see. Simple, uncomplicated fill-ins for the mature beginner. Well, I think I've kind of answered that one through some of these different things where you can find walk-ups between chords. So like if you're going from the G chord to the C chord, you have 2 ways to get there that are the simplest. Or, so look at your rhythm, identify how many beats you have, and then what kind of notes you could put in there. If it's 2 beats, you could do 2 quarter notes or 4/8 notes, or you could get really ambitious and do 8/16 notes. But find little ways where you can just look at where you are to where you're headed and then make a path to get there. Good hymns for offertories and how to focus on playing when there's a lot of talking going on. That's a tough one. And I think it's tough too if like people do come up to you and talk, like trying to stay focused on that. But that's a whole nother question, I suppose. Let's see. Good hymns for offertories. I usually have a list of like the page numbers that we're going to do. Our song leader will give that to me while I'm playing the prelude. And most song leaders will pencil it in or write it down like what congregational hymns they want to do. I usually will pick my offertory based off the congregational hymn we're going to sing next, or maybe the one we most recently sung right before that, or it could just be one I've had on my mind or heart or been singing. So it's not entirely random. I think you can pre-pick, like if you, like one of my piano students played for our offertory last night. Well, he knew what he was playing ahead of time and had practiced this one piece. So you can do it that way if that's easier for you to just pre-plan it out or to go by what you're doing congregationally. My Jesus, I love thee. All right, let's see. Steady 4/4, I usually keep it with more of a rolling pattern until the last verse, which is in Mansions of Glory, which I want to sound big. So I'm going to answer like 2 questions in one here, and that was, should you use octaves in congregational playing? And the answer is yes, you should, because they're authoritative and they're strong. So I generally play a lot of octaves whenever I'm doing congregationals. Not 4 verses in a row, but generally 2 to 3 out of 4. The other part of that was arpeggios, and I've had a lot of requests today for the arpeggio tutorial, and I will explain that here. I've also done a 7 or 8 minute arpeggio tutorial here on my YouTube channel, so you can scroll down and find that. It's a couple years old, but it's still good info. So let's take My Jesus I Love Thee and look at how to put in an arpeggio. So an arpeggio is just taking a chord, breaking it up, and playing it systematically through 1, 2, 3, 4 octaves, however many you have time for. So what I'll usually do is do them quickly, but if you're starting out, there's no secret formula for mastering arpeggio techniques other than start slow and then build your tempo. Each time you play it correctly, go a tad faster. I usually don't do my arpeggios in root position, so if I'm on the word in, man, right there, in Mansions of Glory, well, that's my F. I'm not going to go F, A, C, F, A, C, F, A, C, F. I'm probably going to start on the melody note for mansion. And the reason I do that is because chuns, that's where I want to end up, is the next melody note. So what I'll do is I'll play the F chord that I'm on, anchored on an A. So I'll do A, C, F, A, A, C, F, A, A, C, F, A, and then I'm on the B flat chord. So when you're doing an arpeggio, think of where you want to end up. And that's what's going to help you know the path to take. So I did it based on that. I usually repeat the top note. That just seems to be easier for my hand. And if I'm doing a 3-note arpeggio, if I'm doing a 4-note, like something like that, and I start my arpeggio on a C, for an F chord, it might be C, F, G, A, C, F, G, A, C, F, G, A, and then I'm ready for my next melody note. So find where you want to start your arpeggio on, and you don't have to do it in root position, but do it slowly. And let your thumb is shorter for a reason, and that is it can pass underneath and start a new octave. So don't let yourself try to repeat and let your pinky drive up, finger 5, don't let it drive up an arpeggio, and don't get 2, 3, and 4 crossed over each other. Like, let your thumb do the work. And same thing goes for downwards. You can let finger 4 cross around. But practice them slowly in just 1 or 2 octaves, and then gradually build up to 3 or 4, however many you want to do. What's the best way to play 9/8 timing? To feel it like a 3, I kind of hit on this at the beginning, so let's go with Blessed Assurance. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So with it having adding a 9 on top, that means there are 9 beats per measure. But the 8 on the bottom of the time signature means that the 8th note gets 1 beat. So I'm obviously not going to feel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That would wear your arm out very, very quickly and it would get monotonous. So instead, I let my right hand kind of carry that chording in the middle, while my left hand just holds the primary beats, which in 9/8 timing are 1, 4, 7. 1, 4, and 7 are very important. How did you know what to play to make him sound fuller when you first started playing? I started playing by ear when I was about 12, and by that point, I had already played a lot of sacred arrangements, and I would recommend you can get on like sheetmusicplus.com or these other websites and look up sacred arrangements where other arrangers have set a hymn and they've played 3 or 4 verses in a really artistic way. So that gave me a lot of ideas. The more arrangements you can play, the broader your knowledge is, and then you've got a lot more to pull from. So that's one way to learn, is to just play other great people's arrangements. Also, my dad helped me a lot. He's a really great gospel pianist, and he told me to octave the melody. So that whenever you guys hear me talk a lot about octave the melody in your right hand, don't play just 2 notes or 3 notes, like get to 4 as soon as possible. That's from my dad. So he would octave it and then put that chord in the middle. And then that's going to make your playing sound more full automatically. Also, the use of octaves in your left hand, and then learning how to add like a rolled 10th in place of an octave can make your playing sound more full. And then like doing a longer rolling pattern, you know, instead of like learning what the notes are in the chord and realizing that those repeat themselves over the span of the entire keyboard. So you have a lot to work with. Like, don't feel like you're limited. You have 10 fingers, but you have 88 keys. Okay, how to do a key change. Yes, so to go from one key up a half step or a whole step, all you have to do is use the 5-7 chord of the new key. So if I'm going from G to A flat, let's do Amazing Grace. Walk it down with the F natural, and then an E flat 7, E flat, G, B flat, D flat. And then you are in your new key. That also works for going up a whole step, G to A or C to D, E flat to F, any of those. We'll do E flat to F. Let's do I Know Whom I Have Believed. That's one in E flat. So as soon as I know I'm going to change keys, I'm already thinking about the chord I need to go to that's based on the next key. So if I'm in the key of F, C is my 5 chord, and I'm going to throw that 7 in there 9 times out of 10. Then on my E flat ending, I'm going to the C7. So start thinking about your next key. Now, there were a couple other questions about key changes, so I'll go ahead and get those now. To do any other key change, whether it's going up or going down. I had a great question about how to do a key change if you're actually going lower. Like if you play a song and it's clear that the singer needs it in a lower key and you have to do that between verses, this is still the same rule. The 2 minor, then the 5 major of the key you're headed to. So let's take G, and we're going to do a key change down to E flat. Well, the 2 minor of E flat is F minor. The 5 major is B flat. So we'll stick with, I don't know, grace that is greater than all of our sins. I need to F minor. So I did the 2 minor, then the 5-7, and then I was in that new key. So you just get to that 2 minor. If you need to add a couple beats in, it's fine. I usually do that during my prelude, and I'll take some time for that transition to get to where I want to be. So 2 minor, 5 major. Okay, arpeggio technique we've talked about. This is a great question about how to transition to the organ if you're playing the organ from the piano. I've had one organ lesson in my life, and it was from a really great music professor down at Presbyterian College, but I'm not an organist. So please know that this answer is short and limited because my knowledge is short and limited. But if on a piano you have a pedal to help you sustain, you do not have that pedal to sustain on the organ. You have to sustain with your fingers. So whereas How Firm a Foundation I might play on the piano, is doing a lot of reaching. On an organ, I'm not going to do that. There's going to be a lot more sustaining. So in some ways, it looks more simple than what you would do on a piano, but it actually takes a lot of finger control to sustain that. So without my pedal, I might go. Notes out for longer. I'm playing the melody, some octaves in my left hand. That's my limited organ knowledge. Now you've heard it. So that's all I can give for that one. The redback hymnal, I did give that person a picture. That's the church hymnal, and it's often called the redback hymnal, and I've gotten asked about it recently. It's published by the Tennessee Music and Printing Company, a division of Pathway Press. So there you go. It's actually an old Church of God hymnal, but there are a lot of like old-time Baptist churches that use it too. And we used it as our primary church hymnal until 2002 when I was growing up, when we switched to the Rejoice hymnal, which is my all-time favorite. Okay, let's see. I did the Southern Gospel hymns, changing. Okay, let's see here. What are we doing? How can you end a song? Well, I just did this with a student. Some people end a song by doing like the 4 chord and then the 1 every time. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend ending on your 1 confidently. So if I'm ending Amazing Grace, let's just do that one since it's kind of nice and simple. So 1, 2, 3, 1. So I'm staying on the 1 chord, but I'm kind of adding in a little bit of a scale. Every song doesn't need a 4 minor to a 1 ending. Like, think about the appropriateness of the song you're playing, and then that can dictate your ending. So most of the time, I just end on a big, strong 1 in 3 different octaves, or, a scale. That works as well. If you always find yourself ending up congregationally, make yourself end down at other times. So, I don't know, how great thou art. Do something a little bit different than what you typically do. So those are great endings. Someone asked about playing through the text. So I let the text kind of guide what I do and how loud I play. A simple illustration of this, and one I've played recently, is When I Survey. So we're talking about viewing the cross, like that's a very reverent thought. So I'm not going to start too big. I'm going to keep it a little bit more subdued. Even some rolling patterns in my left hand. But then maybe on the third verse, see from his head, his hands, his feet, I want to make sure that I'm thinking about, just very deeply about the sacrifice that Christ gave for me, and I don't want to be overplaying anything distracting. So I might keep both of my hands even close together and up an octave higher than I started out. A little bit of less is more going on in songs like that, where you just sort of pull back and focus on the words. Any change you make congregationally renews the congregation's attention to the text. So if I play suddenly louder, that's a great way to get their attention, or play suddenly softer, like I would maybe on a verse like that. And then when you get to that 4th verse, I usually go from F up to G, because it's written in F, that's pretty low. You can go to G and it's still comfortable to sing. And then it's talking about, were the whole realm of nature mine, that were a present far too small. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my life, my soul, my all. So that's where I'm not going to be as afraid to do arpeggios and go a lot bigger. And I'm letting that guide what I do do at the piano. And the simplest way to do that is just changing your volume. So if you're thinking, well, I don't know fill-ins that make it sound like water or make it sound bigger or whatever, just change your volume and change the octave you play in. That's the simplest way to start thinking about the text is, okay, should I be up here nice and big or maybe up here and kind of quiet? All right, let's see. How do you play octaves without hitting the wrong notes? Practice your octaves for your scale. So like take a C scale and just practice it lightly and kind of slow. You don't have to go that fast. An octave is a little bit of a stretch for some people, but it becomes not so much of a stretch the more you use it. So just practice your scales only in octaves. And then when you're able to add them into your hymn playing, don't feel like you have to do octaves every single melody note. Do it primarily on the quarter beats. So let's take like, I don't know, Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. So you can tell I'm not feeling the pressure to go. Do it on every single melody note. Just do it on the primary chord so you can focus on keeping that shape. It's really your hand getting used to that shape. So yeah, all right, that's awesome. Yeah, go for it. Try it out. Okay, He Touched Me. Let's see. It's in F, so you're going to start on a C chord actually. I do, because there are long pauses between the melody notes, I actually will connect between the melody notes. My left hand is using a combination of a rolling pattern and also a rolled tenth, which is a little bit faster. I use a fifth in my left hand instead of an octave. Sometimes a fifth can sound nice and tight when the right hand is really close to the left hand. So let's do the chorus. That's why I'll play it as an arpeggio. So focus on letting all those rich chords that are already written into the music kind of come out nice and strong. Tips for playing I'll Meet You in the Morning and I Know He Heard My Prayer. So those are both great Redback songs. Things like that just like in He Touched Me, connect between my melody. And you can see in my left hand I'm doing a rolled tenth instead of an octave, and it just makes it sound a little bit richer. Make that F natural and F sharp. That's a really pretty way to lead into the chorus. And notice my left hand, whenever I come up, it's more like. It's not just. It's a rolled tenth and then splitting that top note into two different parts, or top chord into two different parts. I Know He Heard My Prayer would actually be super similar. That right there. The one augmented leads to your four. So those So incorporate a lot of rolled tenths and then split that top chord up at the top. That'll make it kind of have that like lilting feel. Oh, let's see. I already did key changes. Let's see what else. Oh, this was a great question. This person asked how to get back into it after they kind of gave up on the piano. I would say start basic, start where you left off. And if you need to go back even further than that to reading some easy music, but ultimately, like, do it for enjoyment and do it for the Lord. So that can be kind of like your deep motivation. And if you're afraid of playing in front of a crowd, I would say take a hymnal and go play at an assisted living or a nursing home. I played in nursing homes before I ever played in church. And we had a guy at our church that had a nursing home ministry every other Sunday. And when I guess I was about 12, the current pianist for that moved away and they asked if I would start playing for it. So every other Sunday, I'd sit there and play hymns, and I probably didn't know what I was really doing, but it was a great place to start. So start small like that. You don't feel like you have to go straight back into a big church service. So just do it because it's fun. Best way to learn chord patterns in the left hand. I've kind of talked a lot. I hope I've hit enough on that to where it kind of answered your question about different patterns for your left hand, rolled tenths and chords, octaves, rolling patterns. There's all kind of things. Yes, I recommend octaves congregationally. Let's see, a good theory book. Well, my favorite for like chord cadence theory, that type of stuff, is this one, the Alfred book. I love it. Okay. The other series I really like is Pencil and Paper. So that's an old one. It goes way back, but some of the old stuff is really great. So, and I'm sure there's more modern ones. All right, let's see if there's any of these. How to play for choir music. Don't feel like you have to play so much melody. That's the key there. If your choir can sing the melody and carry it, then you get to focus more on accompaniment. I play pretty similarly with our choir because I still play a lot of melody right now. It would be pretty similar to how I play congregationally. I don't think there would be a whole lot of differences. All right, so I'm going to end with playing Sweet Hour of Prayer and All the Way My Savior Leads Me. Are there any questions I'm supposed to answer within the video? Or are we good? Okay, so I'm going to do All the Way My Savior Leads Me and Sweet Hour of Prayer. So let's see. Thank you guys for watching this. This was fun. You guys gave some really great questions. And some of this basic stuff I actually cover in the web course Foundations for Hymn Playing, and it's on my website. And exciting news, we're planning 2 more that are going to be at a more beginner level that are going to be released in March, and they're going to have sheet music attached. So that's great. I've already been working on all that stuff. So you have until February 11th if you want to get Foundations for Hymn Playing and be included in a special VIP group that's going to kind of be like a part of how I'm going to interact with you and help find out ways to like make the sheet music we produce better and more appropriate for what you guys are needing, and also like questions about the course. There's going to be a lot of really special stuff, and you'll kind of be the first ones to get it if you've purchased Foundations for Hymn Playing by February 11th. So I'm going to open up a special Facebook group just for those who have purchased it and who are working through it, because I want to hear from you guys and find out how it's working for you and what you're liking. So all right, that's until February 11th. Okay, so the course will still be available after that, but the Facebook group will be closed on February 11th. All the Way My Savior Leads Me. That's one of my favorites.